get asked most often as I go around playing the fiddle for folks is what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? And so many people ask, yeah, so there you are nodding yourself, you're probably wondering the same thing. So many people ask me that question that I decided I'd better have an answer for them, you know, and so I decided to go out and talk to a whole bunch of experts, and I asked them all the same question. I asked them all, what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? And what I found out was that if you ask a whole bunch of experts the same question, you'll get a lot of different answers. So one guy told me that a violin is just a fiddle that went to college. Another guy said nobody cries if you spill a little whiskey on a fiddle. I went downtown Louisville, there's a guy that buys them and sells them down there. I figured he would know, you know. He said, well, if you're buying it, he said, it's just an old fiddle. But if you're selling it, it's an antique violin. Then a guy told me, well, a violin has strings on it, but a fiddle has strangs on it. Especially here in Kentucky. And then another guy said, well, if you take a violinist and you take away that music is sitting in front of him, well, he stops playing. But if you take a fiddle player and you set music down in front of him, he stops playing. Then probably my favorite answer of all, a guy told me the difference between a fiddle and a violin is, about $20,000 a year. And I think it's more adjusted for inflation, too. But what I thought I would do this evening is do a little demonstration. So I'm going to play a piece of classical violin music, and I'm going to play an old-time fiddle tune side by side like that, and that way you'll get the idea of the difference between the fiddle and the violin. And the answer is, the difference is the way you play, all right? So I'm going to play a piece of classical violin by Mr. Antonio Vivaldi, who was a very famous composer back in Italy, back in the Baroque era. And he wrote a lot of music for the violin. He wrote this piece called Violin Concerto in A minor. And you know something? Have you ever wondered why it is that when it's a violin piece, they have to explain it to you? It's always violin concerto, something like that, or violin sonata, something like that. Did you ever notice that? Did you ever hear a fiddle tune in D major? They don't have to explain that. Well, I'm going to play just a little bit of the Violin Concerto in A minor because in spite of all those lessons that my mother paid for, that's all I know. And then I'm going to play an old-time fiddle tune. This one's called The Devil's Dream, and I know the whole thing of that, so you get the whole thing of that. So here we go, the difference between the fiddle and the violin. Now you want to pay close attention when the violin player starts playing because it's a little bit different than the way the fiddle player starts out, so watch.